Hello to everyone watching and listening around the world, and welcome. Today we are doing 10 minutes with Richard Bond. Richard is a senior consultant and facilitator for one of IMA's open courses, Project Monitoring Techniques, which is coming up next month, and has been working in international development sector for 50 years. He is an expert in the planning and management of learning process projects with an academic background in geography, agricultural engineering, and economic and social studies. He is passionate about innovative monitoring and evaluation methods, having developed some himself, and we are very grateful to be speaking with him today. Hello, Richard.
Hello, Olivia. Nice to be here.
It's lovely to be here talking to you. So tell me, what do you think is the most invaluable lesson you've learned from your work in international development?
Well, undoubtedly, that has to be the need to have ongoing learning from field realities. You know, we can so easily become disconnected with the realities in this field. And some years ago, Robert Chambers, I think, coined the acronym CDR, meaning complex, diverse, risk-prone, as a way of characterizing these environments that we so often find ourselves in: social development, rural development. The modern equivalent is VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous, but they all mean the same thing. We're working in very difficult environments, and we absolutely have to stay plugged in to what's going on.
Absolutely. It's really important to keep up to date and in the know of what's happening in the world and what's happening around us. So absolutely. And what trends have you seen in your experience in the international development sector so far?
Trends is the word. I often refer to it as a fashion industry. You know, ideas come and go, and sometimes they come round again, or come with a different name. And of course, the skill there is to latch on to what's of value and incorporate it. I've seen positive and negative trends. On the positive side, undoubtedly, the integrated approaches have a lot of value. In the 90s, it was integrated rural development projects, and then in the noughties, it was the livelihoods projects, taking a broad look at people's problems, and in the case of livelihoods, opportunities. The second positive trend has really been the anthropological perspective, really. Participatory methods and participatory mixed methods, very big in the 90s and beyond, and sadly sometimes not always remembered today. On the negative side, I don't want to dwell on these, but I think there's been a certain retreat from reality as support has been given more to programs and policies rather than to projects. Projects are still there. Somebody is still doing them. And the other one is a confusion sometimes between GDP growth and human development. You know, this is quite worrying at times.
Well, they're very different things, and whilst you do need to look at both, it's probably you need to look at both together and not one or the other in order to help development happen. So absolutely, that's really interesting. And what opportunities or new experiences do you think are around the corner then?
One of the opportunities comes from a lot of major agencies realizing the importance of adaptive management and learning organizations. And whereas sometimes this is a bit internal, it's an excellent principle. It carries on from learning process projects of previous decades. And it's a very encouraging sign that they know what needs to be done. The weakness I find is with the tools. You know, they don't often have the tools to actually do that learning.
Well, that's, I think, it's a big part of it, and it's something that I think we at IMA are trying to help with, providing the tools and the methods through our courses and consultancy projects, and it is a real need that's out there. What opportunities then? Well, we spoke about that there's a real need for tools. So is that the sort of opportunity that should be around the corner for NGOs and smaller organisations, perhaps with less funding?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's to make that learning intention a reality. And this is about techniques, and it's about approaches that you take. It's as simple as that.
Yes, well, very similar then to our the project monitoring techniques course that you help run with
what we're trying to do.
Consultants. Yes, absolutely. And what would you say then, with all of your work and experience, is the highlight of that work that you've done within your sphere of work?
Well, personally, it's my first year. In 1971, I was posted to a remote West African agricultural station and village, and lived there and worked there. And I count that as continuing education. And I still draw on that, and I still look back on that and reconnect with what's going on. And a former senior colleague of mine had an idea that along those lines. He says that anybody working in the development field should be licensed. And you get your license by living for a year in a remote poor village. And there's a lot of sense in that. Yeah. But for me, that's my personal highlight.
Well, I think that's a wonderful highlight. I can relate actually myself, and I worked overseas in Bangladesh for not quite as long, but it was, I think, a similar sort of project, and it really opens your eyes up to a life that's probably very different to yours, and makes you appreciate other people and other people's experiences. And not everyone has the same experiences in life and the same access to resources and education, and it's a really important thing that it's known and it's shared. And if you are wanting to work in that sector, and you are wanting to work in the international development sector, that you have on the ground experience with different communities. So I'm really glad to hear that that's one of your highlights. I think that's really lovely. I suppose then, what do you think are the qualities that make a good development worker?
Well, we know the structure of qualifications, and we know how difficult it is to start off with the experience and those kind of things. But above all, I think, and the thing I always look out for, is actually a passion for the poor and disadvantaged, and a passion for protecting environments, because this is the areas that we work in. And you'll meet many difficulties and frustrations along the way working in these kind of situations, and you need something to carry you through. And if you don't have that idealistic passion, you at some point you're going to give up. So it's the heart.
Well, that's really wonderful to hear, and I agree with you absolutely. The passion is what drives most people, I think, who work in international development, because there's a care and a want to support and help and protect, as you say, people who don't have necessarily the abilities to do that for themselves. And I think it's a really wonderful thing that you found such a love for that. So that's really wonderful to hear. Well, thank you very much for speaking to me today, Richard. It has been lovely chatting with you about international development and your work in it for past 70 years.
70? Oh, come on.
No, 50. No, 50 years. 50 years.
I'm not that old.
Well, you have the wealth of knowledge. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Olivia. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And
Yes.
See you again.
Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone watching and listening to us today. Thank you for listening to 10 Minutes with Richard.